Welcome to today's webinar, Maryland Community Walk Initiatives, Walking the Walk of Maryland's Pedestrian Agenda, hosted by the Maryland Department of Planning in coordination with the Maryland Department of Transportation and our many Walktober partners. My name is Michael Bayer. I'm the Manager of Infrastructure and Development at the Maryland Department of Planning and host of the Walktober Walkinar series. Walking is an activity that many of us take for granted. But as pedestrian accident rates continue to rise and access to safe pedestrian spaces is diminished, communities are recognizing that walking and improving the walkability of our neighborhoods requires public attention and action. Throughout October, the Maryland Department of Transportation, in coordination with several state agencies and other partners, has been sponsoring a series of webinars or walkinars to highlight how we can collectively rally around walking, an activity that is both central to the state's active transportation efforts and a critical component promoting public well-being. This is the fourth and final in the series. Thank you for joining us today, and please visit www.mdot.maryland.gov/Walktober for more information about Walktober and to watch recordings of the previous walkinars. We are recording this webinar and we'll be posting it online. All participants today will receive an email with a link to the recording once it is posted. The Maryland Department of Planning also hosts a national webinar series in association with the Smart Growth Network on smart growth and planning topics available for viewing at smartgrowth.org. We encourage you to visit the website and to subscribe to our e-newsletter for smart growth and planning news and to learn about our upcoming webinars. You can also find out about planning initiatives, planning tools, and educational opportunities in Maryland by visiting the Maryland Department of Planning's website at planning.maryland.gov. Viewers of this live event are eligible to receive 1.5 CM credits from the American Planning Association. To log your AICP credits, visit the American Planning Association's website at planning.org, log into your account, and search for the name of today's event, which is Maryland Community Walk Initiatives, Walking the Walk of Maryland's Pedestrian Agenda. You can also search for event number 9207842. So to get started today, our speakers are Cara Rozaieski, Tracey Greene Gordy, Sandra Brecher, and Chris Eatough. Cara Rozaieski has worked in public health for 33 years, first with the American Lung Association of Maryland, and later with the Somerset and Wicomico County Health Departments. She is currently Director of Prevention and Health Communications at the Wicomico County Health Department. She has identified one of her proudest accomplishments as having been part of the advocacy effort that led to Maryland going smoke-free. She is also proud of working with partners to start Walk Wicomico. She relates to the struggle that many have of fitting walking breaks into her workday, but almost always gets a walk-in at home with her husband and her beagle. Tracey Greene Gordy is a graduate of Salisbury University with a degree in Geography and Regional Planning and of Old Dominion University with a Master's in Urban Planning. Tracey has been a practicing planner for 31 years. She has been with the Maryland Department of Planning's Lower Eastern Shore Regional Office in Salisbury for 22 years, including 15 as the office's director, where she provides planning and zoning technical assistance to county and municipal governments. The Maryland Department of Planning's partnership with the Wicomico County Health Department on the Walk Wicomico Coalition earned Tracey the distinction of being named Wicomico County's 2019 Outstanding Public Health Leader. Sandra Brecher is Chief of the Commuter Services Section in the Montgomery County, Maryland Department of Transportation. In this role, she leads efforts to plan and promote the use of alternatives to single-occupant vehicle travel to reduce traffic congestions, improve the environment, promote sustainable urban development, and help to address climate change. Her office works with county employers, developers, property managers, and the broader community to incorporate transportation demand management strategies into policies and projects. It also operates 5 transportation management districts located in urban activity centers of the county, and it also operates 2 commuter stores. Sandra received her undergraduate degree from Ohio University and a graduate education in urban planning at Cornell. Finally, Chris Eatough is the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator for the Howard County Office of Transportation. Previously, he held a similar position in Arlington County, Virginia, a leading bike and walk-friendly community, where he participated in the planning of the successful regional capital bike share program. In a previous career, Chris enjoyed traveling the world as a professional endurance cyclist, including 6 world championships in 24-hour solo mountain bike racing. And you can Google that. As a Howard County employee and resident with 2 children in the public school system, Chris is focused on improving street safety for all, providing equitable transportation options, and helping to create a bikeable and walkable Howard County. Following their presentations, our panelists will answer as many questions as time permits. You can submit a question anytime by using the questions tool in the control panel located on the right side of your screen. Before we get started, we'd like to share a brief video from MDOT Secretary Greg Slater.
Hello. Thank you for joining us for this final installment of Maryland's 4-part Walkinar. Today's Walkinar will introduce you to neighbors in Howard, Montgomery, and Wicomico counties who have helped cultivate partnerships and projects to promote walkability, health, and well-being. My hope is that their example can inspire us all to consider how these and other efforts might be extended across the state. As Walktober comes to an end, I'd like to thank all the speakers who have participated in our Walkinars, as well as our partners such as AARP, America Walks, and all local governments and agencies that have served as sponsors, as well as the Maryland Department of Planning for hosting these seminars. We hope to keep this momentum going throughout the year, and we look forward to next year's events. If you missed anything, go to our website, mdot.maryland.gov/Walktober for information about Walktober and resources available to all Marylanders. Remember, we all share a responsibility to create environments that are safer and enjoyable places to walk. Let's continue to take steps together to make Maryland a fully walkable state. Thank you, and walk safe.
So before we actually go into the presentations, we're going to launch a brief poll. So we're just asking everybody on today if you can identify where you're from. And if you're having some issue with the responses, you should exit from the full screen mode. We'll give everybody about another 40 seconds or so to respond. It's always useful information for us as well as for those in the audience who are curious who was with us today, and for the panelists so they know who they're speaking with, since we're not here in person. And just to share that with everybody, you can see it on your screen. 61% today are planners, 27% are enthusiasts and advocates of pedestrian issues, 8% architects or engineers, 3% health professional or other healthcare workers, and 2% elected officials. So welcome to everybody. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Cara and Tracey.
Good morning. I hope everyone's having a good day. This is Cara Rozaieski with the Wicomico County Health Department and Walk Wicomico. And I've got to pull my screen up, which I did not do. I am so sorry. We were so concerned about sound. Okay. Shoot. Could we jump ahead to someone else? I'm sorry.
What's your issue, Cara?
My slideshow.
Oh, just bring it up. Just keep talking and bring it up.
Okay.
But you have to
right.
You have to share your screen. We don't see your screen.
I know. Hold on. I'm having trouble getting to it. Hold on. Love technology when it works. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere now. Okay, how's that?
It's open, just put it in presentation mode.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Now I'll have to talk faster. Okay. All right. So thank you to the Walktober organizers for inviting us to share Walk Wicomico's efforts. I'll start out with just kind of some nuts and bolts stuff, and then Tracey will get into some of the more fun stuff that we do. Wicomico County Health Department has been involved with walking in some form since at least 2000 when we started our Walk at Lunch, which was just an effort to try to get workers to walk during their workday. And then we ended up getting some funding as the walking movement has taken off since about 2014. Our mission is to encourage folks in Wicomico County to walk by improving walking conditions and increasing opportunities to walk. And our main focus thus far has been that second part. And our vision is that Wicomico will be a community where people walk for transportation, health, and recreation because walking here is safe, convenient, and accessible. We do have a coalition that helps drive what we do and decide what we do. And as you can see, these are just our most active members, but you can see that we have good professional representation. And one of the things we hope to work on in future is more, community representation. And a note about the city of Salisbury, they have been wonderful helping us get everything done, including starting up our Facebook page and things of that nature. And we actually have representation from the mayor's office, their Parks and Rec committee, and their Disability Advisory Committee. So we're very pleased with that. Our funding mainly comes from MDH and through the health department, and then also our local Salisbury Wicomico MPO, which has been super supportive of everything that we're doing. And we're just kind of helping each other out with that, the walking aspect of their plan. We have a number of activities that we're doing. We do have website, phone app, social media, events. We do mark some routes and we do have some training. So I'm going to quickly go into some of these items. This is the landing page for our website, and I encourage everyone to check it out. We'll have the typical stuff that anybody has on there, and certainly we recognize our partners, but we also talk about health benefits, trail etiquette, other walking options. These are unofficial trails, such as around a business or say Salisbury University. And some of them are closed right now due to COVID-19, so we try to update that too. And then we're going to advertise, of course, walking events, hours, and others in Wicomico County with a calendar and with flyers. We did do some trail mapping a few years ago, and we included trail features such as water fountains and trailheads, and we hope to add more maps to that in the coming years. As far as resources, we put up some new things such as walking with COVID, falls prevention, anything that has to do with walking and safety. And also, people could register a walking club if they wanted to and open it up to others to join. Our phone app, again, encourage folks to check this out. That was just completed in November of 2018. We added the major trails from the website in June of this year, and we hope to add GPS to the trails and more trails this year also. And some of the features of the app include a GPS trail locator, the maps, aerial views and panoramas of the trails and trailheads. We have informational videos about the trails, walking mindfully, walking safety, proper footwear, hydration, indoor walking, and our coalition. It also has a step and mileage logger. You can post photos to your social media from it, and there's a car finder in case you don't know where you parked before you started walking. As of the other day, we had over 2,000 downloads with about 1,500 active. And just a side note, it seems that iPhone users are a wee bit more into this kind of stuff than Android users. Our social media, Facebook is really our biggest thing, and followed by Instagram and Twitter. We'll talk about some of the challenges with time and staffing later, but this just gives you kind of an idea of the type of stuff that we post. We are small potatoes, but we do continue to grow. It keeps growing just a little bit every month. So we'll do motivational, walking safety for people and their pets. We promote our own stuff. We'll do amusing things. We've posted workouts before, walking workouts. We'll take pictures of local road and sidewalk improvements. And I call them curiosities. The other day we were walking and there was there was a tree trunk with a mass of hundreds and hundreds of mushrooms on it. And I took a picture of that and posted it. And the point of that is you don't see that stuff when you're driving. If, you know, life at 3 miles per hour that Walk to Connect promotes, you see a lot more. And then also pictures of people on our trails and various webinars. We'll share America Walks information and things of that nature. I'm going to turn it over to Tracey for the moment.
Good morning. This morning I'm going to start talking about some of our events, in particular events where we've partnered with other organizations. I think when Cara talks about us being small potatoes, we are, and obviously one of the keys to our success are these partnerships. We've been able to partner with different organizations to plan and promote various events, to host and carry out particular walks. We've even been able to get local businesses to donate healthy foods and beverages for our walks, even some of the roadside stands to donate produce. And we've also been able to get a small amount of funds to purchase some prizes to be donated as incentives for some of our walks. It's always for us about finding opportunities, because when you don't have a large budget, you don't have a lot of staff, you have to look for opportunities to leverage, you know, with other organizations and events that are going on in the community. So more specifically, I'll talk about some of those events. One of the organizations that we've been able to partner with has been Walk to Connect. And for those of you that may not be familiar with that organization, they're based out of Denver, Colorado. And Walk to Connect came here in August of 2018, and they partnered with the health departments. And when I say the Tri-County Council health departments, in our region, that's our lower 3 counties, Somerset, Wicomico, and Worcester. So you'll hear me use that terminology a lot, Tri-County Health Departments. Walk to Connect came to Wicomico County to partner on a walking movement leader training. And really the intent of this training is to have volunteers be trained to a competent and confident level to be able to be a walk leader and to lead free walks, which can range anywhere from large scale community walks to basically small neighborhood walks. So this slide really represents that walking movement leader training with Walk to Connect. And then while Walk to Connect was in town, we also planned with them 2 additional walks. One was the Stroll or Roll, which was at the Holly Center, a local facility near the Mack Center here in Wicomico County. This was intentionally scheduled at this location because, as you can see, there is a hard surface walking area, which allows for full access for walkers or wheelchairs or strollers. And then later that evening, that same day, we had a community walk in the Salisbury City Park, which was a glow-in-the-dark dance walk. And I think we were really surprised at how many people turned up from the community for this walk. It was a fun event. I believe we had over 100 participants. It started at dusk and went into dark. We walked a little bit rougher terrain, so it wasn't as easily accessible for wheelchairs or strollers. But what was interesting was that it was still accessible for vision impaired participants, of which we had some. And, you know, when we walked this trail, and I was a part of this walk, we had the music playing, we had the glow sticks on, and at about the halfway point, we stopped and we did a little dance. And then at the end, we stopped and did a little dance. And it was dark and you had to be careful on the trail. And one of our vision impaired participants made the comment when we were talking about it being difficult to see. He said, "Welcome to my world," which was actually a really good lesson for us to learn about making these walks fair and equitable for all participants. Another event that we participated in here locally in Wicomico County, we have a minor league baseball team known as the Delmarva Shorebirds. Last spring, they added on and officially opened a boardwalk around their ballpark, and Walk Wicomico participated in that ribbon cutting ceremony. And that was, again, another opportunity for us to have a booth at the game with our materials to promote Walk Wicomico and walking in general, with you know, walking snippets and our logo up on the Jumbotron, and really just be a part of that official opening with a lot of people being present to attend the baseball game. Again, you'll see on the slide the Lower Shore Walking Tour. Obviously, due to COVID, this was a virtual event. However, we were able to promote it through the Tri-County Health Departments and providing map routes for all 3 counties. And doing the virtual walk, people were able to submit selfies from walking the trails or neighborhoods. We were able to give out t-shirts to the first 100 and then a grand prize drawing for the best selfie submitted. Another event that was sponsored here locally in September was co-sponsored again by the Tri-County Health Departments, but also by the Lower Eastern Shore Recreation and Parks Departments in conjunction with Walk Wicomico. We were able to hold a Tri-County Walk Expo. And not only was, you know, were there information materials available for walking and to promote walking and Walk Wicomico, but there were presenters that presented information on things such as health equity and mindful walking, and also walking audits. And actually at this event, we're able to conduct a walking audit. For those of you who have not been involved with one or may not know what they are, you know, in their simplest form, it's basically when people go for a walk together and note what on a particular route makes them feel comfortable or safe on that walking route. It notes deficiencies or dangers or areas in need of improvement. And, you know, those things are tracked on a checklist. It was interesting because on my first walk audit, the group of us were talking about the route, and all of a sudden one of our participants tripped and almost fell because there was a raised joint in the sidewalk. And it was funny because when you're walking, sometimes you're not looking down and you're walking with someone and talking. And those are the kinds of dangers you need to note and work with your community to try to fix. At this event also, there was a great focus on equity. And, you know, one of the examples they gave that I'll leave you with today to think about is that, you know, equality is when everyone gets shoes, but when not everyone gets the shoes that they particularly need, that's inequity. So that was something for us to think about when we were planning our future walks and how we were making these walks available for all. Walk Maryland Day is something that Walk Wicomico has participated in since 2015. We've partnered initially with the Wicomico County Extension Office, and now obviously partnering with MDOT on Walktober and these Walktober events. So this has been something that has been ongoing since the coalition began. Again, to talk about and point out a key example of leveraging an opportunity, the city of Salisbury was fortunate enough to be chosen as the host for the National Folk Festival for the years 2018, 2019, and then 2020, which has now been postponed to 2021. Because we're such good partners with the city of Salisbury and our Walk Wicomico effort, we leveraged that partnership and this opportunity with the Folk Festival to hold what we call, you know, a sneak peek walking tour of the festival. At the point that we did this walk, many of the stages were already set up for the first year's folk festival. And so it was very nice to be able to go around and see the different venues and to see who was going to be playing where. And what was really nice about that was the city of Salisbury also donated some prizes. So we had drawings along the route and people won prizes. And, you know, we were able to include our logo in the flyer and get some promotion that way. But also the tagline for this event was "Get the lay of the land before the play of the bands," which was really cute. So we had quite a good turnout for this. This was one of our earlier walks. One of the things that we've tried to do with Walk Wicomico, and particularly with the partnership with my agency, the Maryland Department of Planning, I do a lot of work with municipalities in providing planning and zoning technical assistance. There are 8 municipalities in Wicomico County, and we have tried to work with those municipalities to do a couple of things. One, to designate walking routes and put up signage that the health department has available, but then also to hold community walks. And this was one of our very first community walks that we held. We even were fortunate enough, you'll see Delegate Anderton in the photo, to get him to attend. And, you know, this was not the best weather day, and it wasn't the greatest turnout of anything that we've done, but it was one of our first municipal walks. And one of the things that I've learned that I'll pass on to you that I learned from Walk to Connect is that it's fine to start small. Many of the organized walks that are highly successful today may have only had 2 or 3 people starting out initially and then just grew and grew and grew. So we weren't discouraged by this, and actually our walks did grow. So this was a walk that we did very early on. Then we move forward into, you know, if you'll think back to when I talked about Walk to Connect coming to Salisbury and partnering with us on the Roll and Stroll and the dance party, we decided at Walk Wicomico that we wanted to have an event, an annual event that would be free to the community, that everybody would enjoy, that would be family friendly. So we decided to adopt the Glow in the Dark Walk as our annual event. And we held that. Obviously, the one that we held with Walk to Connect was in 2018. We held ours in June of 2019. We had a huge turnout. It was a great event. We played music, families came, we had the glow sticks, we had prizes donated, we had water donated, we had snacks donated. We held it in one of the municipalities, and it was just a really great event. And we were really looking forward to having that event this year. Obviously, we couldn't because of COVID. And then we planned a second sponsored event, which was also free. And we did that in December of 2019. We have a partnership with the Department of Commerce and one of their employees, Mindy Burgoyne, who is a regional representative here on the Lower Shore. She runs ghost tours. So we contacted Mindy, and she was thrilled to be able to offer this partnership with her ghost tours and Walk Wicomico. And so we sponsored a Ghost of Christmas Past walk in downtown Salisbury, which coincided with her ghost tour. And this was free, but we required registration and a waiver, which we always do. And this particular tour was limited to 30 participants, and we were sold out of the tour within, I believe, 7 to 10 days. So this was a really special event. We offered free hand warmers to all participants, hot chocolate, and it was about an hour-long walk, and it actually went over very well, and we'd like to repeat that again. And back to Cara.
And so very quickly, obviously, we promote other walks that aren't ours, but also we promote things that just include walking, such as the Holiday House Tour. And also, again, the Folk Festival. You know, we put out things about how many steps did you walk and things like that. First day hikes. Anything that can involve walking, we promote it as a chance to walk. And then again, we've been marking routes. We've done 2 towns and 2 businesses thus far. So if anyone listening is in Wicomico County and wants to mark a route in their town or their community or whatever, we do have some signs left. We don't have a ton, but we do have some, and we would be happy to work with you, and just contact me. And then very quickly about trainings. We have trained our own coalition members, and Tracey and I have both received extra training I was fortunate enough to be an America Walks Fellow, thanks to MDH paying for that, which was wonderful. And again, if you're an advocate and you haven't applied for this, I encourage you to. It is usually a competitive application process, and that's yearly. And then also, we got to go to the Walk Bike Places conference in New Orleans, and it was wonderful. And this picture is from that. And the main point I want to make here is there is nothing like going on a walking audit or just an activity with someone differently abled than you, so that you can see how it is for them. For this lady, we all walked around. Our goal was to get to a park, and we had to stick with her. And it was not easy. It was not fun. It was very frustrating. And she indicated that sometimes it can take her 4 hours to get to work, and she's got to work sitting in her chair, and she's got to explain to her boss why she can't get to work. So that's using public transportation. So we hit all sorts of barriers. It was tremendously hot, and people actually left the mobile workshop to go back to the hotel to cool off. And those of us that stuck with her, she really appreciated, and we appreciated learning from her.
As Cara said, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to walking leader training with Walk to Connect out to Denver. This is our small group of trainees getting ready for a walk. One of the things that Walk to Connect stresses is that when you conduct a walk, that you come together at the beginning of the walk and you come together at the end of the walk. And so, you know, one of the things I really learned was a lot of people think that walking is just for health, but it's not. It's for health, but it's also to connect with nature. It's for sense of community. It's to be inclusive. You have to be safe, but overall, it's walking for a meaningful experience. And if none of you have ever trained to be a walk leader, I would highly recommend it because it was a very eye-opening experience for me. So now we get to our challenges. To sort of start to try to wrap up our presentation. Obviously, funding is always a challenge. You know, Walk Wicomico has relied primarily on small grants. We received some assistance from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, but you know, grants require lots of tracking and reporting. It would be very helpful to have a single large source of funds, and we could probably be more effective with that. Staff and timing, you know, Cara and myself, this is just a very, very small portion of the work we do. And we rely on a lot of volunteers and other partner organizations that also don't have this as their priority job function. With COVID-19, that's been a challenge, just being able to have our activities and hold our meetings and promote Walk Wicomico. And then also advocacy, trying to get you know, local governments on board when walking hasn't always been a priority, and when you're trying to point out things that need to be repaired or replaced and walking routes, and maybe the funds haven't been budgeted for that. And with Cara and I in particular working already for government agencies, you have to be very, very careful about how you present these items to elected officials. I think moving forward, you know, we have a lot of ideas and things we'd like to do. We certainly would like to increase diversity and equity. We talked about that in the presentation, making our walks more accessible to a wider variety of people. We'd like to continue to look for opportunities to promote walking events and Walk Wicomico in general and educate the public. Our interaction obviously has been stifled a little bit by COVID. But again, you know, we're going to push forward and we're going to keep on with this movement. And when things get back to normal and we start to hold our events again, I think, you know, we'll pick up steam. I kind of feel like we continue to be the little engine that could, because we do operate with such restrictions as far as staff and budget and opportunity. But I do also think that we have used a lot of creativity to get to the point that we are now.
So there's our contact info for when you get the copy of the presentation. And that's my little girl, Gemma, who is our unofficial mascot. She goes to most of the walks and her picture appears on Facebook very often. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy, you self-muted. I can't unmute you.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Sandra Brecher from Montgomery County Department of Transportation. And I'm going to talk to you about one of the events that we conduct in our office and commuter services each year, and give you a little bit of a context with regard to how we do this. Next. Montgomery County, as many of you probably know, is located just north of Washington, D.C. We have a population of over 1 million residents. We're really like a very large geographically spread out city. We are the most populous, and I would say popular, county in Maryland. And we are home to 18 federal agencies and installations and about 500,000 jobs as of last time it's been tallied. Next. In Montgomery County, we organize our efforts with regard to commuting and trying to get people out of their single occupant vehicles into several different areas, and one of those is transportation management districts. Those are our primary focus because those are our high activity centers. Bethesda, which is in the just north of the district line, Friendship Heights, which is immediately adjoining the district line, are two of the down county areas that are fairly condensed, fairly compact, as is downtown Silver Spring. And those are shown in this stylized map right near the southern border of the county. Then moving north, our North Bethesda area and our Greater Shady Grove TMD are quite large, as you can see, and much more spread out. And so that has its own challenges. But the mission of our efforts and of our TMDs is to promote alternatives to people driving alone to work, to single occupant vehicles, and in order to address traffic congestion, air quality, and the sustainability and greenhouse gas concerns that we all have. Next. Employment is a key factor in why we have addressed these activity centers because, as everybody knows, peak period or the rush hour is generally the most constrained time for our transportation network. And so we have focused these efforts on employers within each of these TMDs. And on this slide, you can see the numbers of employers in each of these locations. Some of them, quite large, others, a little bit smaller, but Friendship Heights is our most, diminutive TMD, if you will. We've actually had a reduction in the number of employers there as some of the newer development has come in and replaced some of the developments that were there. But we have 28 employers, so a number of them quite large, including Geico, which is located at Friendship Heights. We have Microsoft, we have a number of others, but we do have about 5,000 employees there, but we have, as you see, quite a few. It ranges up to, in North Bethesda, 35,000 employees in these locations. Now, as I noted, North Bethesda is quite a bit larger. It has 3 metro rail stations, and so it's not really comparable with a place like Friendship Heights with 1 or Bethesda, downtown Bethesda with 1. In total, we have 614 employers in these locations with not quite 100,000 employees, or about 20% of the total jobs in the county. Next. Typical events that we conduct in each of these TMDs are listed here. Bike to Work Day being one of the primary ones. We coordinate for the regional Bike to Work Day pit stops held all around the Washington area. We conduct car-free days. We have this campaign each fall, but as you can see, we do quite a few different approaches and different activities in order to work toward accomplishing our goals. I won't go into a lot of details. We work with a lot of other organizations, including Commuter Connections in the Washington region and MTA, from whom we receive some of our funding as well. Next. Walk and Ride is an initiative that we began several years ago. I have another slide to show our progress, but basically we have people form teams in each of the employer locations where they were at least, and I'll talk about this in a minute, they were issued pedometers, or they could use apps to track their steps over a 3-week period each fall. And they compete among each other. They compete within their TMD against other teams from other employer sites to log the most steps. Participants who walk a certain number, here I've indicated 25,000 steps per week, we've adjusted this over the years, can be entered into a drawing for special prizes, $25 gift cards. Participants who walk even more, 50,000 steps in a week, are entered into a drawing to win a major Amazon gift card. And then we have various weekly challenges to win gift cards and other gifts, other promotional items. We do charge to enter the program, to enter the competition. We have charged $50 a team, but we have an early bird registration period. And we do have employers who have contributed this money for their teams in the past. Then we have grand prizes for the team members who are on the team with the highest number of steps, and those are indicated here as well. We've had pretty significant gift cards that the grand prize team, all of the members win. Next. The history of our program is that there was a goal to create a new event to promote walking and connecting with transit or connecting with work. And so the name of Walk and Ride was evolved based on the theme of Kiss and Ride or Park and Ride. And WMATA and other interests were invited to be sponsors. We have held regular stakeholder meetings. There was a logo created that's evolved over the years as well. We have a special dedicated website for logging steps. That technology has evolved over the years. And we decided it would last for 3 weeks because there was research to show it took at least 3 weeks to develop a habit. And as you can see at the bottom here, the timeline was that we started about not quite 15 years ago, 14 years ago. And then we've evolved, initially started in downtown Bethesda, then evolved it to North Bethesda, and then gradually spread it to all of our TMDs. Next. The goals are to provide a fun event that promotes walking, and as I said, connecting with transit, or in some cases, just walking the whole way, healthy and green, helping employees who had not maybe tried it to figure out that this is really an easy way to get around, and to use transit instead of driving, that you can incorporate exercise into your daily life by perhaps walking a few blocks to get to that bus stop or to that metro rail station, or to perhaps your carpool location. Encouraging team building, it raises morale, promotes healthy lifestyles. We've had a lot of interest from the health community in terms of the employers' sites because they also are interested in that. And we're promoting businesses that are supporting traffic mitigation programs and developing relationships with our offices and our staff in each of these locations. So it works in many different ways. Next. So I'm going to show you a few of the various elements to our website as it's evolved. This is a homepage that shows people when they register, they go to one of their 5 TMDs. Next. And then the mission is indicated there. This is one of the slides that's dedicated to employers, to reach out to employers, to show that it is related to their efforts with their employees, but also that we are reaching directly to the employees. So people track their steps, they watch their progress. We do caution people that this event is for walking only. We've had many people who've said, well, you know, I like to do, you know, I bike, or I want to skateboard, or whatever. We haven't found ways to incorporate those at this point into this event. That's one of our challenges. But we've said, please just track steps for walking. In addition, if people go out for exercise per se, say after work or before work and go out for a run, those steps are not supposed to count. This is supposed to be in the context of your work day. So the next slide. And then these are slides just to show some of the benefits that we promote with the employers and with the employees, and some of the cautions in terms of that, and some of the advantages. And we also offer ongoing assistance throughout the program. So that's where it's a never use transit. It's easy, just contact us and we'll help you find the best connection for you. Next slide. And then this is a picture of the registration page. It's a pretty simple process. We do have captains who are in charge of coordinating their teams, and those are the folks through whom we communicate. Each team member, though, is responsible for logging their own steps into the website. And then the captains, check these and coordinate with their teams and our internal folks who are managing the program in each of these areas. And then we have one overall manager for the county who handles the back office end of this. They communicate primarily with the team captains. Next slide. So here's an example of one of the pages that were that would be for a team that they would see during the event, and they wanted to see how they were doing, and then what their individual team members have done that week, and then what they have in terms of their overall team performance. Next slide. We get some really creative names, and this is on the left side are some of those that are listed from this year. And on the right side, one of the charts that we show how different teams are doing on a weekly basis to promote competition among the teams. So you can see some of the creative teams, Soul Train, and the Friendship Heights one, Live Now, Die Late, is actually an eye doctor's office, quite a large eye surgeon's office. The Shin Splints is another one, very cute, Busting My Behind. So every year we get some really creative names, and we have competitions, contests to vote for the most creative and funny name, etc. Next. This is a chart that shows how we've done over the years with our participation in the program. As you can see, we started in 2007. Actually, this program got started in 2006 with a smaller number, but we had about 100 players initially. We kept building this program and building it to the point where we had over 1,000 and just around 1,000 participating at the peak of the period. And then we started having a few issues that crept into the program with regard to some of the, as it grew, with regard to some of the back office functions. We had a little bit of an issue with people accusing people of cheating. We had to move the software around because of our consultant team having some issues with that. We ended up bringing it in-house and getting our own internal folks to work with us to develop it. When we had started, we had tried to do that and we weren't able to. There were other issues that accounted for some issues there in those waning years, but then we started to resolve those and we were building back up very nicely, had gotten up to almost 900 participants last year, and then of course COVID hit. So we weren't sure if we would be able to continue this program, but in fact we found ways to do that. And we've been amazed and surprised at how well the program has worked this year. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Next slide. So I'll run through quickly on the different examples of promotional and marketing items here. This is an example from Bethesda. We do encourage each of the TMDs, and we have different staff in each of the TMDs. Some of them direct staff, some are contractors. Bethesda Transportation Solutions is one of our contractors in the downtown Bethesda area to do these programs. These are some examples of how they've tailored the program to their area. The next slide. Friendship Heights, as I mentioned, is another one. Each of them have their own program logos. And advisory committees and local areas that they use to promote the program. Next. North Bethesda, this is a picture of all the bags that are being prepared for deployment out to the various employer sites. And this is one of the things I want to touch on with regard to COVID. and how we've had to adapt. We are doing those bags this year. We are doing the pedometers this year. We have had very few. We did purchase a few pedometers in case there were people who did not have apps or did not have smartphones or Fitbits or other fitness tracking devices. And so we are adapting. We have adapted in that way. And so these bags usually had lots of goodies in them, giveaways and the pedometers and lots of other things. We didn't do that. One of the reasons was the employees were not necessarily at their employment sites. We'll keep scrolling through these while I'm talking about this. So the next slide, please. This is the greater Shady Grove area. This is another example. A person is holding one of the bags. We had special bags developed to put the things into. Next slide. And Silver Spring, which is our downtown area there. And again, just different ways of promoting this. And then the next slide. So here's another example, a little bit closer up of some of the collaterals and the program links that we've used. But I did want to take a minute to talk about COVID and the impact. So we reached out at the beginning of or sort of the end of the summer. We weren't sure if this event could even be conducted. And we reached out to some of those who had participated in the past and to the employers, and we were amazed and surprised at how much enthusiasm there was. Even though people were primarily in these offices not on site, there was a lot of interest in using this as a morale builder. And so we ended up doing the event virtually. And so people could still form teams based on their employer, and they could still compete. And we had a lot of success. We had I'm sorry, I've lost the number in my head right now, but we had about 500 participants this year, and we had over 100 teams that have participated. And up here on the left is an example of one of the flyers that we use to get the word out. One of the things we link with, program links, is our Fair Share program, which offers transit subsidy matching for employers so that the employees can basically have a much less expensive commute if they are using transit. And so this helps us to make that connection with employers. We also have maps that we produce, and on the bottom, this Lookout campaign that we've done in connection with a grant from the Council of Governments, which shows the new infrastructure we have for biking and walking in the county and how to interface with it. I won't go into a lot of detail because of time constraints, but if people are interested, I can talk about that as well. Next slide. And here are some other examples of promotional items that have been used. Next slide. And these weekly challenges. Next slide. And then we do a post-event survey to get feedback and try to improve each year. And we give an incentive for that. And here are some of the responses that we've had with regard to how this event has impacted people's lives. They started taking transit. They started carpooling. They found out at least about what was available in terms of that. They've done some car-free days, and in some cases walked just tremendous numbers of steps, incorporating exercise into their commutes. Next slide. And then that's my contact information. So in general, I would say that this has been a really successful effort. Even this year, we do have challenges in terms of funding. The other presenters were talking about that, and certainly our bandwidth in terms of time. We really want to expand this program much more broadly beyond the transportation management districts that you saw on the map. And we do have plans to do that. We're looking for ways to incorporate biking and other modes into a similar kind of challenge. And with that, I'll end and pass it back to you.
Push it over to Chris. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. This is Chris Eatough with Howard County, and hopefully everyone's seeing the Walk Howard Moving Forward screen. I was going to just give a quick mention. If people are having trouble during the transition between presenters, they may want to refresh their screen depending on their browser and app, and hopefully that'll get you on page with our presentation, Walk Howard Moving Forward. So this is the Howard County Pedestrian Master Plan. So the Howard County Pedestrian Master Plan was adopted by Howard County Council in February of 2020. So not that long ago, although it may seem like a long time ago with everything that we've all been through in recent months since February 2020. It's really a bit more of an infrastructure-based master planning document. It does include some program and policy recommendations as well, which I'll get to later in the presentation. But I think it's a nice complement to what we've heard from the two previous presentations, which were kind of more focused on the programming side and the incentive side of encouraging people to walk more. This is a bit more based on the infrastructure side, and really a big focus of the plan, a big way we wanted to format the plan was to prioritize our needs in Howard County, because we do have a lot of pedestrian needs, we have a lot of advocacy, we have a lot of missing sidewalk segments and challenges with road crossings. So we wanted to be able to prioritize them in a way that's implementable and makes the best use of our resources over time, and not just county resources, but developer resources, state resources, and gives advocates something to advocate for. So those are some of the things I want to focus on in the presentation, kind of what makes this pedestrian master plan stand out versus others that are around. So just as a quick snapshot from WalkScore, which is a publicly available website for any jurisdiction in the country, and just gives you a quick snapshot of the walkability of an area. And as you can see, Howard County here, we have some challenges. We have, the best we're doing is in downtown Columbia, where we're somewhat walkable, and the rest of our communities there are rated as car dependent. So most errands require a car. I will note geographically, we've moved just a little bit north from Sandy's presentation in Montgomery County, and we're up in Howard County, just north of Montgomery County. Also showing the vision for the plan down below. So the vision for the Walk Howard plan is that Howard County has a connected pedestrian network that safely and conveniently accommodates people of all ages and abilities. This plan is an update of a previous plan. So Howard County did have a pedestrian master plan for 2007. This is kind of a snapshot of what was done as part of that plan. The colored lines there are basically all the sidewalk segments that were recommended in the plan, and the green ones are built, the orange ones were partially built, and the red was unbuilt. So we kind of had some mixed success with our previous pedestrian master plan. We did manage to get quite a bit of infrastructure built. It adds up to about 23 miles of sidewalk that were built out of that 2007 master plan in those 13 years or so. And also about 39 intersections were improved that were part of the original pedestrian master plan. So that put us in about a 50% success rate. About 50% of the recommendations from the old plan were implemented. So we were able to learn from that and come up with this new plan that had some additional strategies on implementation. To develop this plan, this is basically the process we went through. We did a lot of work up front with assessing the current conditions. We also did a lot of gathering public input, both in person and online. We used a pedestrian advisory team to come up with the vision, goals, and guiding principles. And we added the programs and policies to make it a well-rounded plan. So the field assessment that I mentioned, it was really extensive. So we actually assessed 343 miles of roadway, 915 intersections, and 494 bus stops around the county. So yes, this was real in-person, on-the-ground assessment. So great work for interns if you can get them. We had a couple great interns when we did this work. I remember this was a couple years ago, but one of the interns during one summer of doing this work lost about 20 pounds with all the walking they were doing just to do this work for us and assess our current conditions. Some of the longer segments that didn't have sidewalks were able to be assessed by car, but a lot of this was done on foot. So we developed an iPad program so that basically a form on an iPad that could be used to collect all this information and would prompt the person doing the inventory on what they were looking for at each location, and easy kind of one-click filling out, and also you can take a picture that's geocoded at the same time. So we were able to assess a huge amount of data with this assessment and inventory. You can see some of the statistics there. So we were collecting information on the improvements that were needed, basically, and it was pretty extensive in terms of sidewalks, whether they were missing or whether they were too narrow or they had obstructions. So basically deficiencies with our sidewalk system, deficiencies with the intersections in terms of pedestrian access and ADA access. So a lot of them do not have curb ramps or pedestrian signals at intersections or sufficient pedestrian lighting. And then we assessed all of our bus stops. So access to transit was a big focus for the plan. And we wanted to make sure our bus stops are accessible. And a lot of them are not. We especially on the landing pads, which is kind of a basic, hard surface connection between a sidewalk and the bus drop-off. We have made progress on this since then, since this data was taken. But at the time, it was 78% of our existing bus stops needed landing pads. I'll mention also the way we decided which road segments to include in this assessment. I mean, we did a lot, 343 miles, but it's not every road in Howard County that was assessed. We did it based on where our transit service serves in Howard County, which is kind of the central, southern, and eastern portion of the county. That was kind of phase one of our assessment. And then we also added all segments from the previous pedestrian master plan that were not built, that were not completed. We included that in our assessment. And we also included what we call the rural hamlets in the western part of the county, which is a bit more rural, but there are some small town areas or hamlet areas in the western part of the county that we assessed also. For the public input, we had 3 in-person workshops located around the county in different parts of the county that were well attended, and we had an online wiki map, so an online interactive map where people could go and click on locations and fill in their information on what they felt was lacking in any particular location. The online was extremely popular. We had 2,500 comments received online, and we were also, as well as all those sidewalk segments, we were able to identify what we call missing connections throughout the county. So this is not necessarily a missing sidewalk. It's more if a connection could be made between 2 locations that's not along a roadway. So sometimes it's kind of a back of shop type connection where a pathway between 2 adjacent land uses could be provided. And it might sometimes be a easier, more convenient, and more pleasant connection than a sidewalk along a roadway. And sometimes it's more direct as well to go directly from location to location. So we were able to identify those missing locations through the public input also. As I mentioned, the focus really is on infrastructure and trying to build a connected pedestrian network, but it is a holistic, well-rounded plan. So it includes all these elements as well. These are similar to some of what we've heard about in the previous presentations, with encouragement programs, increased pathway patrol by police, analyzing pedestrian crash data, kind of a lot of the programmatic and policy improvements that you see in other plans. So from all that inventory that we did, we were able to come up with our infrastructure recommendations, and it's pretty extensive. So on the sidewalk side, the recommendation adds up to 212 linear miles of new sidewalk and 31 miles of sidewalk repair needed, or sidewalk improvement for existing sidewalk. On the bus stop side, we have 421 bus stop locations that needed some kind of improvement, either a landing pad or a ramp or improved lighting. So there's all those elements of bus stops that we need to add. And then on the intersection side, we have 512 locations for intersections that need pedestrian improvements. It's a lot. It's a lot to grasp when you look at those high numbers. So we wanted to come up with a process for prioritizing those improvements, and also for kind of packaging them and batching them in bite-sized pieces that make sense for implementation. So the way we did that was we developed a priority score for each one of those improvements, and we applied it across the board. So it's based on, it's a 25-point system, and you can see the breakdown there. The first category is kind of based on the quality of the existing conditions. So that's mostly what is currently lacking in that location, which could be the sidewalk element, the intersection element, the bus stop improvements, or the priority connection that I've mentioned previously. So it's the presence or lack of those facilities. And then there's a 10 points available for what we call need and demand, which is basically proximity to things that people would want to walk to. So is there, what's nearby? Are there schools, parks, shopping centers, employment centers, medical facilities, the kind of things that people will and desire to take short trips to get to, short walking trips. So that's a 10-point availability, and it could be anywhere from 0 to 10 points available for each location based on those kind of pedestrian generators nearby. And then there's the an equity factor on all of these, which was 5 points, which is basically the demographics of the folks that live in the immediate area. You can see the categories there: household income, number of rental households, the education rates, the percentage of single parents, and the unemployment levels. So that gave us our 25-point scale. And then again, we still have, we have the project scored now, but we still have the hundreds or thousands of improvements that I've already mentioned. And how do we kind of package those up so that they can be implemented and provided in a way that makes sense? So we package them up in what we call structured projects. So structured projects is basically a collection of improvements that are in one geographic area. So rather than going in and just fixing one dilapidated sidewalk in one location, we're going to go, when we go to that location to make improvements, we're also going to fix the curb ramps and the bus stops, and package the improvements up geographically and by priority also into these structured projects. So elements had to be in the top 15% of the priority score to be into a structured project, and then we packaged them up geographically and came up with 43 structured projects around the county at a total estimated cost of $11.5 million. So we're starting to look at something for Howard County that is implementable over a series of years. That's not something we're going to be able to do in one budget cycle, $11.5 million. But over a series of years, if you look at 5, 10, or 15 years, it does kind of fit into the typical budget allowance that has been that is feasible for these kind of pedestrian improvements. So we didn't dictate a timeline because it's so dependent on the annual budget cycle and things like COVID, which obviously have a huge effect on the budget for any given year or series of years. But we did give some scenarios what it would look like to fund these projects over 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. And that's for the structured projects, and also to evaluate those priority connections, those missing connections that I mentioned that are not necessarily sidewalk and roadway based, but are the kind of the back of shop connections and short pathway connections between two areas. So we had 17 of those, which were considered the high priority ones, which scored the highest. And we wanted to put a small amount of funding each year into evaluating those to see which ones are feasible and which ones should be advanced and which ones they will need a little bit more level of design and planning, usually because they are not along roadways. So those structured projects, this is kind of what they look like around the county. They're the numbered projects there. So they're distributed around the county fairly well. And this is this is an example of one structured project. So as I mentioned, it's a series of improvements. This is in the area of Tamar Drive and Old Montgomery Road in Columbia. And you can see we've got a missing connection there, which is a pathway connection from the intersection to the school and pool area. We've got several intersection improvements. I think in this case was related to crosswalks and curb ramps. We've got some bus stop improvements there, on Tamar Drive, and we've got some sidewalk improvements. So when you add these up, it's a total cost of $85,000. So this is kind of again, a nice package that can be requested in a budget request, and it makes sense, and the community can see immediate improvements to this area, not just one small improvement, but a kind of more general, holistic set of improvements. So as I mentioned, the plan was approved and adopted in earlier this year by the Howard County Council. It's Resolution 14-2020. The website is there for the Walk Howard. It's walkhoward.org. You can also use walkhoward.com. That'll get you there as well. And I was going to give a quick demo of one of the elements of the website because we have a nice map on here. I was talking about the structured projects. I think you guys should still be able to see my map on my screen here. So this is on the Walk Howard website, available to everybody. And this is the map of Howard County. And as you can see, structured projects are on there, but not much detail. But as you zoom in, you can zoom and pan on this map, and you can look at the structured project 12, and you can start to look at all the elements that are in here. So we've got some yellow is the sidewalks here, and if you click on it, you actually get the information on what the recommendation is, what the estimated cost is. So all that good GIS information that we were able to collect is then put into here, into the public website. So you can click on the bus stop, and you're going to get additional information on where this bus stop is, what the priority score was, what the cost of the improvement was. All the information is shared depending on what level of interest the public has. They can look at the whole county and look at all of our recommendations. And this is available for everyone, so I encourage you to go check it out. So that's the end of my presentation. I think we're going to transition into our Q&A portion.
Yes, thank you, Chris. And thanks to everybody for presenting today. And thanks to everybody also who have submitted questions. You can continue to do that, and we'll have a Q&A session until about 11 o'clock or so. And we'll ask our panelists if they can turn on their webcam so you can see them while we do this conversation part. And actually, I'll start with a question for you, Chris, because appreciate what you were just showing us on the screen. Here at the Department of Planning, Maryland Department of Planning, we're doing a lot of that kind of GIS work. Wondering, how are you tracking kind of the use of that site, and are people, the communities, actually giving you some feedback based on the data that they now have access to?
Yeah, they are. So obviously we have any website, you can check the page views and do your analytics on there. And we do see that I don't have the numbers on hand, but the map is certainly the most popular aspect on that website. The whole plan is viewable there as well, kind of the text-based plan, the PDF, but the map is what people really like to go to. And it's used broadly. I mean, the other Howard County employees, the planners, and Department of Public Works, they all use the map as well. And then it's great for developers if they have a development project that's interacting with some of those recommendations. It's the quick way to go and see what's recommended by the county in that location. So the map has a very broad use. The map in its form now doesn't actually have, it's not kind of an input map. We're not taking in input through that map, but there is a link on the site that people can email us, and they do email us with their additional recommendations or comments as we work through the plan.
Great, thanks, Chris. So most of the questions have been targeted toward the presenters that were speaking at the time, but if you all also want to add some maybe similar experiences as a response, you can do so, and we'll kind of go through till we run out of time. So I'll start back at the beginning, I guess, for Cara and Tracey. Question here is, have you talked to the county and the city about needed improvements coming out of the walk audits?
We have spoken before the county council, and as I mentioned, the city of Salisbury is very active in the coalition already. So to some degree, but we also haven't really done a concerted effort to get audits done at this point. As I said, our main focus thus far has been on the events and trying to get walks going, increasing those opportunities to walk. And the city is doing lots of things on their own, which is great. Pedestrian improvement, sidewalks, you know, bike and ped lanes, things like that. Tracey, do you want to add anything?
Well, Cara and I did meet with the Wicomico County Council, and I think that our efforts were well received by them. I think what's important to note, though, is that most, not all, but the majority of the sidewalk systems are in the municipalities. So I think they were a little bit questioning, you know, what their role might be beyond support. So because the city of Salisbury is such a key partner, we do have a good connection with them. But also we need to coordinate more, I think, with some of the smaller municipalities. But again, it comes down to a budget issue, especially for the small municipalities. So I think for like safe routes to schools and programs like that, we can work with the municipalities. But beyond that, it's going to be troublesome to be able to do sidewalk repair installation in these small towns.
Great, thanks, Tracey. Here's another question about Wicomico. Have the business community embraced the opportunity to market their businesses to walkers?
That's an interesting question. I guess I would have to say no, since I had to pause there. It's an intriguing notion. Certainly our businesses partner with us for Walk at Lunch. They actually sponsor it, and they have groups of people who come out and walk. But as far as really doing that kind of targeted marketing, I would not, and I don't believe that has happened.
I think that some of the major employers promote like walking programs like the hospital, and there's been, pardon me, there's been some activity for, like, for example, the Tri-County Council building has put in a walking trail. You know, I just made the comment about the county wondering how they could have a role in this. And I think during site plan review for some of these larger companies or larger buildings that are built that are institutional and or commercial, that may be something the county could have a role in down the road, is looking at installing some type of a walking trail or something similar for employees at lunch that might even be separate, distinct from Walk Wicomico.
And we have,
I could
again,
address.
we have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have marked trails at several businesses, Blind Industries and Services of Maryland, and that's used quite a bit by their clients. Shore Transit, like Tracey said, Purdue has their own walking signs that they've done downtown. So it does happen. It's just nothing that I think that we've pursued, say, through the Chamber of Commerce or anything like that. Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that we, in those bags that we were showing in the picture there, oftentimes in each of those areas, our staff have reached out to local businesses and they have provided incentives. They might give a coupon for a discount on coffee or, you know, lunchtime or something of that nature. So we do have local businesses involved, and they are at times also becoming formal sponsors as well of the event.
And I actually did have kind of a business passport idea that we haven't been able to put into effect, wherein, say, downtown, people would walk into their businesses, get the passport stamped, and, you know, do prizes that way. We just haven't moved forward on that.
I like that idea. Yeah.
Okay. We actually have a question for you, Sandy. Have you analyzed the data from those that participate in the walking in terms of routes and frequency? And will this data fold into making improvements to the routes and promotion of walking?
That's actually a really good question. And no, we have not done that. It is something that I've thought about. I think that with technology, we could probably do something like that to make that kind of an improvement. But no, we have not done that. The other thing we haven't done is we haven't tracked in Montgomery County. We haven't done much in the way of pedestrian counting. I was noticing, you know, with Chris and some of the others that, you know, there are automated ped counters and things. We've done a little bit of that, but not as much as might be desirable. Of course, we have a very, very large area to cover, but I would like to see us do more in that regard. One thing we have done, and this was another forward-thinking effort that we've thought about, is with our e-scooters and e-bikes, that there you do have the capacity to take that data and look at what the routes are that are being used. And so we are doing that. We do have a platform where we're collecting that data, and we will be using that, analyzing that, the results from that pilot program, to look at what are the most used routes with regard to the scooters and e-bikes. So I'd like to do something similar to that with the pedestrian, with the walk and ride program, but we haven't yet.
Okay, thank you. I guess another question here for you, Sandy. Is it more difficult to involve smaller employers, and has there been any progress reaching out through providers of health insurance, for example, with wellness campaigns?
Yes, the wellness campaigns are a good partner. But the questioner raises a good point. With the smaller employers, yes, it is a little bit more difficult. You know, if somebody has only a couple of employees, sure, they could still form a team. You know, well, the minimum number of team members is 3, so you would have to have 3 people participating. But you know, in terms of and I should have mentioned that that $50 enrollment fee for the program that employers often pay, it's not, they're not obligated to pay it, so the employees themselves can do that. And for this year, under COVID, we reduced that greatly, and we only charged $10, but we were not providing, as I mentioned, pedometers to everybody, and we also weren't providing the t-shirts because of the distribution issues with COVID. But yes, it is a little bit more difficult to get smaller employers interested. Their budgets are generally smaller, they have fewer employees. So it does work better with employers of some size. It doesn't have to be 1,000 employees, but you know, if you have 20 or 30 employees. But we've had some doctors' offices and some law firms and things that have only a few employees where they have formed teams, and it is it does work. And then, like I say, the connection with the health and welfare functions of the larger employers is a very critical one. That's one of the reasons it resonates oftentimes.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. We have now a question for Chris from John Mayer, who says, pedestrian connections between properties sounds like something taking place on private property outside the public right-of-way. Are these improvements Howard County paid for on private property?
They oftentimes are private property. So in those cases, they can come into play when the properties are redeveloped, and you know those developers come through the county for the site plan process. So having those connections noted on our master plan is useful at that time, because it's a starting point for the conversation, or the sometimes the requirements for developers. Sometimes they could be public, publicly owned facilities such as parks and government buildings. So sometimes the county may have right of way to do those connections. And sometimes the county has, slithers of property between that were obtained between properties, but were just never used as a pedestrian connection. Through our subdivision process, we often in the past, took a slither between properties for a potential future connection, but it was never actually implemented. So we can look at those sometimes to provide connections between A and B. So there's a few different flavors of those priority connections and who owns the property, as John mentioned. But there kind of is a potential path forward on all of them. Some of them take a long time. Sometimes you're waiting for the property to turn over or be redeveloped for the potential connection to come to fruition. But at least we have it noted in the master plan. It is a long-term vision. We at least want those potential connections to be noted.
Great, thanks, Chris. Another question for you. Columbia has a lot of trails which are not directly adjacent to roads. How did the integration of Columbia's trails factor into your analysis and the recommended improvements?
So yeah, Columbia was developed with a lot of these basically these kind of connections that I've been talking about that are pathway connections, oftentimes between cul-de-sacs and between neighborhoods, and they're very useful walking connections, probably more recreational initially, but they've become, I think, more transportation focused as the Columbia Association has widened some of those pathways and enhanced them to make them more kind of transportation focused. So those, I guess those kind of connections are kind of the inspiration for bringing them to other parts of the county. I think the connections that we came up with in the pedestrian master plan were not as focused on the Columbia areas that have those pathway connections already, but it's kind of seeing those as an inspiration to do that elsewhere and to see if there's opportunities to provide similar connections. And because we have, Columbia is not the whole of Howard County. There's a lot of Howard County that's not Columbia, that doesn't have Columbia pathways. So they were kind of the inspiration.
Thank you. Next question is from Barbara Sorkin. I think it's directed to everyone. Are any of your jurisdictions doing anything to encourage pedestrian-friendly design? For example, building entrances directly from sidewalk as opposed to requiring pedestrians to go through the same driveway entrance as vehicles to enter via the parking lot. And she says, as in the reconstructed Connie Morella Public Library in Bethesda, which used to have the entrance directly from the sidewalk and is now a pedestrian hostile zone, not even well trafficked on farmers market days. I don't know who wants to start with that one.
Well, I was not aware of that in Bethesda. I'll have to look at that. But I would say that in general, in our activity centers, in these TMDs that I was talking about, these are, well, for at least major portions of them in the larger areas, and certainly in the downtown Silver Spring and Bethesda and Friendship Heights areas. Generally speaking, they have structured parking, and they are very urban in orientation, and so those connections are generally from the sidewalk at the fronts of the buildings for pedestrians. In the North Bethesda and Shady Grove areas where you have a little bit more diverse development patterns, that is probably the case, yes. But the county does have a very conscious sidewalk construction program built into our CIP. We also have, pardon me, we're working on a pedestrian master plan, in fact, right now. There's been a big focus on Vision Zero. And so the combination of a number of these factors, I think the question's a very good one. I'm sure there are a lot of locations where that does exist today, but hopefully over time with these efforts, we will be able to improve that so that we are not as auto-focused. And yeah, I'll have to look at that library situation. That's very interesting because that would be a step backwards.
Yeah, I was going to add,
Sorry.
Sorry, I'll go ahead and then you'll go, Tracy. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So in Howard County, it's something we are going to be looking at when we update our developer regulations and the pedestrian aspects of what we can require of developers when they're redeveloping, because that is a somewhat common problem, especially with surface parking. When surface parking surrounds a property, if it's public access type property, you want people to be able to walk in and not have to walk through a sea of parking to get to the facility. It's usually not the best place to be walking and not the safest. So the county recently implemented a complete streets policy for Howard County, and one of the follow-up items is to update our developer regulations to help them comply with our complete streets policy, which says that our streets must be accommodating and safe for all road users. So that's kind of a next step for us, but it is one of the things we'll be looking at with our developer regulations. Sorry, Tracy, go ahead.
No, I apologize. I was going to say the city of Salisbury has implemented a Vision Zero project around the Salisbury City Park. And that's an area that's heavily utilized by pedestrians for walking, jogging, and also bicyclists. So they have completed that project. And then they also have complete street designs. They haven't been implemented yet, but they have been designed for a couple major thoroughfares. So I do think that this administration with the city of Salisbury is making a concerted effort to try to make provisions for pedestrian traffic in a more favorable and safe way.
And I should have added that we are also working on a complete streets guideline, and our department is partnering with the Park and Planning Commission and working on detailed guidelines to implement the policy that we've adopted.
Great, thanks, Sandy. I know we're at 11, but if you all have a couple more minutes, we've got a lot of questions, so I'll maybe ask a couple more and then we'll wrap up. And thanks to everybody who's submitting them as well. I guess there's another question for the Wicomico folks, Cara and Tracey. Have you engaged your local heritage area coordinators, for example, to integrate and promote walking tours of historic sites and so on?
We have not. I have spoken with some of them when I've seen them at various meetings, so I am aware that they exist. And that's a good reminder. Thank you.
Okay. It's a question for Sandy. Smaller jurisdictions may not be able to implement something along the lines of Montgomery County's walking competitions, given all the time and financial costs. Do you have any advice for doing partnerships, or how small jurisdictions might be able to implement something like the walk competition?
Well, I don't think it has to be done, especially as I was mentioning, some of the costs have become less critical in terms of the pedometers. That's what we used to spend money on. We started out buying really, really inexpensive pedometers, but they didn't work very well. And we had a constant flow of broken pedometers that we had to replace and people complaining. But now we've evolved. And so virtually all of us have some kind of a smartphone that can track steps. Many people have, wrist-based fitness trackers and in terms of Fitbits and Apple Watches and other devices like that. So I think that those costs, by and large, we've decided we will not be incurring any. As I said, we have a supply of pedometers that we are able to give out to people if they don't have one of those tracking devices. We certainly want to be, equitable in terms of the program. As far as for other components, we started really small. This started just in the downtown Bethesda area. And I want to give props to Francine Waters, who was involved in getting that program started in downtown Bethesda when she was heading up our effort in that area. It really wasn't, other than obviously there is staff time involved, yes. But other than that, it doesn't have to be a really costly effort. I don't think the prizes have to be huge. That's a way to control the budget. We've reduced the prize levels this year as well because of, the constraints that we have. And I think there are ways to do this. Yes, I think it could be done just on a very limited, small scale for an area. And if the questioner wants to reach out to me, I can certainly pair you up with some of the folks who are more on the ground handling this, and they may have some other ideas for ways to scale it. It doesn't have to be at the scale that we're operating it at.
Great, thanks. Here's a question for Chris. Are the iPad app and Wikimap function available for other communities to use? Did you develop or acquire these?
The Wikimap, yeah, they both were developed with the assistance of our consultant. So I'm pretty sure the iPad, basically it's a form that we created on the iPad, so fairly easy to reproduce, but not really a commercially available or publicly available form. And honestly, probably because we did the work a few years ago, we will probably update it if we were going to use it again, because things do change in the way that you're going to collect that data and what you're going to look at. The Wikimap, it was one of the kind of baseline Wikimap. I think it was an ArcGIS product that we used that is available. ArcGIS has a lot of great products along those lines. Obviously, we tailored it and branded it as a Howard County product, but those products are pretty available out there these days.
Thanks. And I guess one last question for you, Chris. What was the process by which you decided on your point system for prioritization? Was the public involved, or was this the product of a technical analysis?
The public was involved in the sense that we had that pedestrian advisory team that I mentioned, which included members of the public, walk advocates, health advocates, transportation planners, schools representatives, Columbia Association representatives. So we used that group to come up with the scoring system. So like any scoring system, it's you can tweak it, you can weight things differently. But at the time, we knew we wanted to have something focused on a combination of the existing conditions, the likelihood that somebody would be walking in that particular area, and then an equity focus as well. So we knew those three elements. We used the team to come up with the weighting, which was 10, 10, 5. And that was how we came up with the scoring system. And it is intended to be, an evolution. If we think it needs to be over time, weight needs to shift in one direction or the other, we do leave that option open.
Great, thanks, Chris. So with that, I think we'll wrap up today. Thanks to everybody for sending in the questions, and for our panelists presenting really a deep dive on what you've been doing in your respective communities. Did want to give everybody kind of a last chance to give some final words of encouragement to our pedestrian folks out there today, given that this is also our final Walkinar of October. And so I guess we'll kind of open the table here for Cara and Tracey, for you possibly to give us some final thoughts today, and then we'll go to Sandy and Chris.
Tracey, you go first.
I think I would just say that for our group, we're very small scale, obviously, and kind of new and getting off the ground. I would just say be creative and trying to find opportunity and leveraging partnerships. I think for small groups, that's key. And I also think if you're very interested in walking, it doesn't necessarily even have to be part of an organized group. I think you can start something as simple as a neighborhood walk and make the connection that way.
And yes, I think that the partnerships leveraging existing things is critical when you don't have much money or staff. And I think the main thing is just do. Start somewhere, do something, and it will grow over time. You have to have faith in that. And pooling those resources, without the county and the city and planning and all of those folks that we had on our list, our active list, and without the other health departments pooling our funding, we wouldn't be able to do much of anything. So, that's hyper critical, but also, like Tracey said, if you're just an individual who's interested, anybody can watch an America Walks webinar, and they are wonderful. They're very informative, and doing things like this is fantastic. So, start small and grow.
Great, thanks, Cara. How about you, Sandy?
Yeah. I first of all want to thank MDOT for doing this and for really highlighting the importance of walking with the Walktober effort. Walking is having a moment, one might say, during COVID, and I think it really presents. They always say never let never let a crisis go without taking the opportunity to make it benefit you. So never let a good crisis go. So it's the positive side of this. I think a lot of people are rediscovering how wonderful walking is. And so building on this for many communities, this might be the right time. And I think I'll endorse what Cara and Tracey have said. You can start very small. You don't have to have a lot of elaborate elements to it. But on the other hand, interestingly, technology, as we've talked about, can also play a role. And I think you've seen in our program and in Chris's presentation as well. So there's a little bit of an irony there. you know, we in Montgomery County, I just want to mention that during COVID, we've been doing the open streets or shared streets, we call them, effort, where we're taking some of the right of way that was before used for automobile use and turning it into areas where people can walk safely, and cafe seating for restaurants. So I think there's a movement afoot here that people have begun realizing along the same lines of what we've been trying to do for years, that this gives us a great opportunity to build on.
Great, thanks, Sandy.
Yeah, I really have an integration of the comments from my fellow presenters, and that is just to be persistent. We know these are very challenging times that we're going through, but walking is more important than ever. The mental health, the physical health benefits of walking are so important, so fundamental, and a lot of people are rediscovering the joy of walking. So even though resources are more stretched than ever, and COVID is stretching our people's time, energy, and budgets, improving walking and getting more people walking is really a very worthy effort. So stay persistent, and that can be a bright spot through these tough times.
Great, thank you, Chris, and thanks everybody. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude our webinar today, our Walkinar, Maryland Community Walk Initiatives, Walking the Walk of Maryland's Pedestrian Agenda. I'd like to offer a great big thank you to our speakers for a great presentation, to everyone who attended today, and to Francine Waters and Brittany Brothers of MDOT who pulled this program together, as well as to John Coleman of the Maryland Department of Planning, our communications and technology guru, who ran the board today. The complete recording of today's webinar will be posted online, and our participants today will be sent an email with the link. When you exit from today's webinar, you'll be asked to participate in a short evaluation. Please take a few moments to provide feedback so that we can continue to improve the webinar experience for you. And please join the Maryland Department of Planning and Smart Growth Network on Thursday, November 12th, as we present the Bird-Friendly and Biophilic City, Integrating Safe Natural Habitats into Urban Design and Planning with Tim Beatley of the University of Virginia. Have a great day.